Now, at this point in the show, I want to take a walk really around some major conflict zones in the world. And of course, two that we've been talking about an awful lot over the last year is what's been happening in the Middle East, more recently Syria, of course, but also what's been happening in Ukraine as well. And we'll take a view of both those conflicts now as we enter into the period, not just of Christmas and New Year, but leading up to Donald Trump's inauguration on the 20th of January in the United States as well. If we focus on the Middle East, first of all, the Kremlin today has rejected reports that the wife of Bashar al-Assad has filed for divorce and wants to find a route to the UK. That was one of the stories that came out today. The Assad family fled Syria to Russia after rebels forced them out of power in Syria. We'll just talk about this and just a wider view on what's happening at the moment in the Middle East. Dr. Lena Khatib is an associate fellow at Chatham House and joins us now. Lena, good evening.
Good evening.
And let's just talk about Assad's wife first of all, and hasn't she filed for divorce? What do we know?
Does it really matter?
Well, I suppose not.
I mean, ultimately, there are many rumors circulating, all kinds of rumors about Assad, because no one has seen him in public yet. He and his wife and children are meant to be in Moscow, but they have not been seen. And when people are not seen in public, all kinds of rumors circulate, especially that Asma al-Assad is a dual national. She is Syrian and British at the same time. And, a lot of people here in the UK would love to see her held to account for her role in the devastation in Syria and her role in keeping this brutal regime alive. And, rumors like this just, are part of what happens in circumstances like this.
Okay, let's talk about what's happening in Syria. And top-ranking Jordanian and Qatari diplomats arrived in Damascus today to meet with members of Syria's new leadership. This is Hayat Tahrir al-Sham's chief, Ahmed al-Shara, who had meetings today and yesterday with the Turkish foreign minister and the Lebanese leader as well. So there's lots of discussions going on in Damascus about where Syria goes from here. From your point of view, what is the timeline on this? There have been discussions about whether there should be free and fair elections, or, does HTS take on the leadership without opposition? What is in the best interests of the country, I suppose, Lena?
Well, first of all, the best interests of the country are for Syria to become a democracy. Syria was not a democracy, obviously, under Assad. It was a brutal dictatorship. And so now, 54 years of that has led to uncertainty, because you have Hayat Tahrir al-Sham having led a military campaign to remove the Assad regime. However, Hayat Tahrir al-Sham is only one of the rebel factions that were part of that campaign. And it is also only one of the political groups that had, when Assad was in power, counted themselves as part of the Syrian opposition. And so for now, because Hayat Tahrir al-Sham led the military campaign, it is occupying practically all seats in power in Syria. But this is only meant to be till March. So the key thing is what happens in March, because March is meant to be when an actual interim government is formed. And that government is not going to be just Hayat Tahrir al-Sham. It's going to be HTS plus others. But it's unknown yet, till now. We don't know who these others will be. We know there will be figures from different opposition groups, but what's the percentage of participation? How many representatives are we talking about? Will there be former regime figures that, are kind of relatively acceptable and pragmatic? These are open questions. And part of the reason why we're seeing so much diplomatic activity in Syria, with all those foreign delegations coming to meet with the HTS leaders, is to make sure that this next interim government is more representative, more inclusive, and that whoever is part of it will ultimately play by the rules in terms of engagement with the international community. So I think the diplomats are doing the right thing by engaging very early on to say, we are here, we are watching, and at the same time, we, will be happy to support. But first, you need to show us that you are worthy of trust.
Let's look at the wider conflict and the ceasefire that is still holding in Lebanon, and the actions by Israel on Gaza. There was another attack overnight. At least 20 people killed last night, according to local figures. This is Israeli airstrikes striking on a tent encampment and so-called humanitarian safe zone in Al-Mawasi. So, I think it's fair to say Israel feel that their work is not done in Gaza. What does that mean for that part of the conflict? The continual strikes on Gaza, the perhaps shaky ceasefire in Lebanon, and the actions of Israel. And we can throw Iran into this as well, if you like, Lena.
Yeah, okay. So on Lebanon, I expect the ceasefire to hold. I mean, Israel continues to strike in southern Lebanon, but these are isolated strikes, not, we're not talking full on war. The ceasefire is actually so far successful. But until the ceasefire happened, literally until the last few minutes before the ceasefire agreement was implemented, Israel kept bombing Lebanon, in a significant way. And so for Gaza, I expect Israel will do the same. So until the hostage deal is implemented, Israel is just going to carry on. It wants to maximize the damage it is causing to what it says are, Hamas targets. So unfortunately, I don't think the situation in Gaza is going to calm down until the hostage deal is signed and implemented.
And do we know anything more about that hostage deal? We were talking about it a lot last week. It's fallen by the wayside again. Are the discussions still ongoing? Is that sort of still in the frame, I suppose?
Yeah, it is. It is. It's just that there are no signs regarding a timeline, unfortunately. Okay. I mean, as you know, this has been going on for more than a year now.
Yeah. Meanwhile, people continue to lose their lives. Look, Lena, thank you so much for summing all of that up for us. It's good to think about what might happen over this period, but also over the next month or so across the Middle East. Of course, we began the year perhaps with a smaller conflict than we have now when we think about how the ramifications of what Israel have been doing, but also the involvement of Iran and what's happened in Syria, which was a surprise for so many people, the majority of people, how the scope of what's been happening in the Middle East has widened and widened as the year has gone on. Lena Khatib, Associate Fellow at Chatham House. Merry Christmas, Lena. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you. Same to you.
Cheers.